Hey, welcome back to the pod. Today I'm joined by Jim Schleckser. He's the founder and CEO of the CEO Project, a renowned executive coaching company specializing in high revenue entrepreneurs. Jim offers a distinctive CEO coaching program that combines peer group discussion with personalized one-on-one coaching sessions led by former CEOs. He's also a longtime Inc.com columnist, an author, and podcast host. On the episode, we dive into how to actually find your company's constraint, identifying where speed drops anytime cycle times build up, or if you have customer complaints. We also dive into his 5 hats framework on the behaviors that you as the CEO can take to not only identify but fix the constraints, and also his take on how culture and values are actually part of your operating system, not just in your people section in the company. We also dive into Jim's read on AI, and I find this incredibly valuable because he's able to distill between what's hype and the smoke and the fog in the room because he's talking to thousands of business owners, thousands of CEOs themselves, and identifying specifically where AI adds value and where might just be a hype cycle. And we're keeping it grounded and we're keeping it real. Now, let's dive in. One of the things that struck me is, you focus a lot on the lazy CEO, and people would think that's just delegation. But in my opinion, when you're in that seat of what do I delegate, what do I have to own myself, we'll talk about abdication and delegation. The key issue is the constraint before I actually take action in delegating. Where have you seen founders or CEOs attack the wrong constraint, and how do they identify that?
So, the first, and I've talked to thousands of CEOs, which is sort of where the book came from. And the first question is, what is your point of constraint? And I'm going to say half decent CEOs, but they don't know their point of constraint. They don't know what's stopping the organization from getting where they'd like to be. And then the second, if they know it, how much time do you spend on the point of constraint personally? And many times the answer is, well, not that much. So people that are spending, 30% of their time at the point of constraint, we're talking 12 hours a week, 15 hours a week is not a ton of time. They are actually probably in the top quartile of CEO performance because of that. So knowing your point of constraint and then actually applying time to it on a regular basis makes you an extremely high performer. And yet it's incredibly simple. A lot of people don't do it. And the beauty of it is, if I know that the most valuable thing, I'll give the example I use as a garden hose. If there's a kink in the garden hose, I could do work anywhere on that hose and not get the result I want, which is water going through the hose. So your job is to find the kink and open it up. Well, the same is true in the business, right? It's more complicated, but your job as a CEO is find the kink and open it up. So that's the gist of the lazy CEO. And it turns out that since you now know that everything else is lower value work, you can delegate, defer, don't do. You can get rid of it and shrink your hours to something rational, 55. 50, 60, not going to 20, but we shouldn't be at 80 or 90 consistently either.
One of the ways that I've done this with seen in organizations is I look at the KPI report all the way from send front-end sales to onboarding to upsell, cross-sale, then to back-end delivery, NPS score. Try to look at the full cycle. That's just the easy way for me to do it. How do you suggest CEOs do it? Is similar to that, or is there
that's a solid way to think about it. In manufacturing operations, when you're looking for the point of constraint, like amongst all the equipment you have, you look for where inventory accumulates. So if there's a big pile of inventory in front of a particular machine, odds are that's your point of constraint. In more of a services organization, you want to look for cycle time. So speed, right? So when things are getting kind of stuck in one or two of your processes, whether it's customer acquisition or it's quoting or it's delivery or post-sale service, whatever it is, if there's this congestion and the slowness in that area, probably you got a point of constraint. I'd say another way to look at it is where you're getting customer complaints. So there's something wrong in your processes when your customers are not getting their needs met. And that over time can become a very serious constraint as well. But speed, congestion, customer sat, those would be 3 things that help point you to where it might sit.
Helps it identify. You might have come across this more than once. Where have you seen when the CEO is the constraint? What do you do then?
Yeah. It's tough when the CEO is the point of constraint. And I've actually been writing a series on sort of CEO traps, ways that CEOs become the point of constraint. Um,
Mm.
and it's particularly tough when you're the founder and you're growing the business. And you get to a size where you really need to change your behavior as a CEO to run a
Mhm.
larger and more complex organization. And they struggle to do so. I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. One is I'm the decider. Like I make all the decisions. Everybody comes to me and they check in with me and then we make a decision. Well, the example I talk about is like, think about those old switchboard operators. They're usually women in the day, but somebody call in, they go, Mr. Smith, and they plug it in, they connect it to Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones and whatever. Well, let's say that woman can handle 100 phone calls an hour. Well, what happens when we get 200, 300, 500, 800? If the CEO is
Mhm.
making all the decisions, he's that telephone switchboard
Yeah.
operator trying to handle 800 connecting phone, and it can't be done. And so they become the point of constraint because decisions stop. Like to my point, it gets constipated right at that place. Speed drops. So there's a classic example. Another maybe one that, and this is particularly for founders, is when they get stuck in a role. So
Mm.
all of us are great at something, marketing, sales, finance, engineering, whatever. And they're really good at it and they get ego gratification from it. Like I go
Yeah.
home at night knowing I did a great job because I landed a sale, right? And that was my whole life up to the point I became CEO. Well, and I'm going to tell you, the best job in the world to sell out of is the CEO job. You hand over that card and you're like, it's magic when you're selling. I got to say, but the problem is if you're being the salesperson, who's being the CEO? The answer
Mm.
is nobody. And so you end up, you shrink your CEO time so small because you're spending time in a role. You got a leaderless company. So that is another classic trap. And they've got to say, it's really hard because you go, I'm not going to get my ego gratification from selling anymore. I'm going to get it from being a great CEO and growing the business and growing my people. And some people can make that mind shift change and some
Yeah.
can't do it.
Well, these are both
And
identity shifts.
huge. Yeah. But if you don't make the shift, then the company stops growing. You're the
Mm.
point of constraint
Again,
now,
I've seen that. It
right?
does sometimes end at the top. I've seen that
And
in several cases. When we talk about the activities that we can do, so we're looking at speed, congestion, and then customer satisfaction. Is that where the five hats come in? Like with now the actions, the activities, and behaviors that we can change to influence that change. How do the five hats play a role, and how do we leverage that?
yep. So the five hats are architect, coach, engineer, learner, and player. Two of the hats are used to find the kink, and three of the hats are used to fix the kink. This is bonus material.
Mm.
It's not in the book. So the two that are used to find the point of constraint are learner or analyst, where I'm analyzing data and spreadsheets and looking at KPIs to your point, right? That's an analyst learner model to try to find the point of constraint. The other way you can do it, and this is for maybe more extroverted or kind of twitchy leaders, is to drop in as a player. And so,
Mm.
like way back when, Jack Welch used to go on sales calls because he grew up in sales, but
Mhm.
he wanted the sale, but that wasn't why he was going. What he was thinking is, do we have the right offer? Are we priced correctly? Is this the right target customer? Do I have the right team on this job? Is there something we could
Mm.
do to make it go faster? He's thinking all the sort of meta questions of, is this a point of constraint that I could bust open potentially? That's why he went on sales calls. The example I
Interesting.
use is if you had a call center and you went in the call center and you worked there for 4 hours as a CEO, you'd come out with 5 pages of ideas on how to make it better, faster, cheaper, no doubt,
Mm.
by going into player mode. So go dive in and do is one way to figure it out, or just an analyst or learner like KPIs and spreadsheets and maybe a combination of the two sometimes. So that's finding the point of constraint, finding the kink in the hose.
Mhm.
The solution lies in really only one of three areas. The design of the business, which is
Yeah.
architect. So I've architected the business. This is how much recurring revenue do I have? What's my margin? What's my pricing? Who am I going after as a target? What's my offer to them? Am I fulfilling that offer? All the design things. And I tell people you probably can't spend too much time on this because a really well-designed business is just way easier to run than a poorly
Mm.
designed business. So think about just picking on recurring revenue.
Yeah.
I got 90% recurring revenue year over year. I show up on January 1st. I did 10 million last year. I've got 9 million in the box if I just don't screw it up. But
Yeah.
And I got to go find $1 million
Consistency.
to continue growing, right? Take another business, a contractor. I did 10 million last year. All my projects are complete. I need to go find and deliver $10 million just to get back to even the last year. That's just a way harder
Yeah.
business to run. So that's design, right? The next one is coach. This is talent. So the
Mm.
quality of the people, the quality of the leadership, quality of your board, your advisors. When you talk about CEO getting stuck, that sort of sits in this category. And
Mhm.
there you've got to say, can I coach them up? Do I need to shift the job? Do I need to bring somebody else in? Those are the questions you're asking around talent. And then finally, it's engineering, which is processes and systems. So there's
Mm.
a couple of elements here. There's the human software, if you will, which is SOPs. Here's what we
Yeah.
do when this happens. And these are all for very defined situations. And then there's the IT infrastructure, which is all of the technology that wraps around the problem and the
To make it
people,
happen. Yeah.
including AI, including email, including all that. And then the third, funny enough, people don't think about it, and mission are really actually part of your system that you use to run your business.
Oh, not
Because
just the culture.
culture is derivative of values. I mean, values should represent the
Yeah.
culture. They kind of work together. But
Yeah. It's
what
brilliant that
that,
you're putting it under the system because I agree with you
it's,
from empirical, like actual real life experience.
mhm. And why? Because it's a defined situation that we thought about, the SOP should cover it or the IT should cover it because we've thought about it. What do we do
Mhm.
when we haven't really, it's new. We've never thought of it. We've never seen this scenario before. How do we decide? Answer: culture, values. So it's for all the gray zone stuff, you need values that tell people how to make that decision. Maybe that's customers always right, or we always make
Yeah.
money no matter what, like never give anything away. I mean, depends on the culture of the company. You've been in company, you've probably seen companies like that, right?
Yeah.
We're never going to lose a penny, right? Okay. So those are the three. And usually when you find a point of constraint, many times it's either the process or the people. So it's either the engineer hat or the coach hat is generally where you end up solving it.
Mm.
Redesigning the business at the architect level is kind of a bigger chunk to move, if you will.
It's
So,
a huge shift. Yeah.
so those are for like something's really messed up if we got to change our fundamental business model.
It's a few case studies. I mean, have you been following or seeing like Allbirds turned into a data center company, like the shoe
Which
company now into a data?
I'm
Like, I know that those are some crazy architecture. Like, so have you analyzed things like that, or have you seen Midjourney
I haven't
now doing
looked
like
at
a
that
health
one, but
company?
think about it just on recurring revenue. We went from a retail occasional purchase, great,
Yeah.
and there were lots of them, so that's helpful. But now we're in a subscription model, right? Which has got a long-term play based on and great market dynamics, like
Hmm.
availability versus number of buyers. There's constrained data availability, constrained
Real
power
estate.
availability, real estate. And if they've got that, that's an incredible asset that they can leverage and improve the quality of their business model. I hadn't heard they'd done that, but it's brilliant. And I got to say, gutsy as heck to make a move like
Yeah.
that, right? How do you go to your
Oh
shareholders
man.
that, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be doing shoes anymore? Like, whoa. So yeah, it's a
That's
big move.
brilliant. How do you normally see that? You said architecture, like you mentioned, it's one of the most important to focus, but you really can't be changing the ship like every quarter, every year. Like
Yeah.
how do you what are the hats that are always on for the CEO, and how do you balance your time within those hats, specifically the architecture as well? Because you
Yeah.
mentioned you can't spend too much time on that.
I think you can tweak it, but wholesale changes like the one you described are few and far between because they're just so
Yeah, those are huge
dramatic. And you got
pivots.
a
Yeah.
whole change management thing, and you're going to upset everybody's apple cart or move their cheese, whatever way you want to describe it. But we had a client that did this. He had sort of two elements to his business. He was selling into the pharmaceutical space. He did really high-end meeting management, and they were
Mhm.
brilliant at this. They had this idea of clairvoyant service. Like we figure out you need it before you even know you need it. And you
Oh,
go,
that's cool.
oh man, we were out late last night, and they go, would you like electrolytes and some aspirin? And they had them ready to go because they knew everybody was going out the night before and they were ready for it the next morning at the meeting for like ideas like
Mhm.
that. And the other side, they did sort of marketing consulting, helping people launch new brands and so forth. And we analyzed it, and he had started in the travel management business, this event business. They had turned that over to procurement and they took all the profit out of it. They didn't value
Mm.
the sort of extra special capability he had. He didn't value the extra special capability he had, and they compressed his price. So he was making no money in the travel side. He was making all his money in the consulting side.
Oh wow.
And he said, you know what? I'm shutting it down. Hundreds of people in that side of the business. And he said, sorry,
Wow.
we're no longer in this business. We're gone. The client came back to him and said, hey, we got this really important, client meeting. We want you to run it and da-da-da. And they go, yeah, no. What do you mean, no? It's like, you wouldn't make us make any money on this. We told you we were going to exit if you wouldn't let us make money. We're exited. Please find somebody else. I
Damn.
mean, their brains leaked out of their ears. They didn't know what to do with that one. And come back, 5 years later, and he's got a great marketing and strategic consulting business, making plenty of money, way less people, way better business, lots of recurrence. I mean, and that was a big shift. Smaller shifts are things
Power
like,
focus. Yeah.
yeah, are like change your pricing, increase pricing 10% because you don't have enough margin in your business, or shift to a subscription-based purchasing model for your services instead of a one-time purchase, right? Those would be examples of relatively minor changes.
No, I like that. It's good to see that because I see a lot of the clients that I work with, we focus on architecture before we focus on anything else because there's some issues that need to change beforehand. They're minor, but again, those minor like little impactful make the biggest impact really. Yep. Yeah. So you put AI under engineering, correct?
Under systems. Yeah.
Excuse me, systems. So with the systems, correct me if I'm wrong, from what I've seen online and from your podcast, right now you're seeing AI as augmentation for human work, like the invoices, the hundreds, like repetitive human work. Is that correct?
Those have been the most successful business use cases that we've been seeing. There are some other places it's being used, but they're not fully taking humans out of the loop in most cases, not quite yet. So you need to put some eyes on it or prompt it correctly or design the workflows correctly. So it makes humans capable doing 2, 3, 5, 10 times more output over time. That will probably lead to, it'll lead to some less people per dollar of revenue. But in the short term, it hasn't done that dramatically because there's not, people think every technology goes through a hype cycle, right? The internet, it's going to change the planet. Everybody's going to, blockchain. Oh my God, everything's going to be on the blockchain. It's going to, not so much. NFTs, everything's going to be NFTs. We know physical assets. Yeah, exactly. I've got some, what was it? The Gorilla Yacht Club NFTs.
Like, you still got,
I'm kidding. I didn't go for that, but yeah, like Gary Vee was all in on it. And I mean, it was a whole thing. And yet, where is it now? So I think AI is in a hype cycle at the moment, and people are like, it's going to change the planet. Yes, it will. Not as much as you think it will, like right now at the second. And so that's why I talk about business use cases. I'm all in on AI, but it's a technology looking for a problem to solve. We got to find the quality. We got to find the quality problems it can solve from a business point of view that have good payback and they make sense, and then deploy it there. And that's where the areas I tend to talk about.
Yeah, that's actually one of the major motivators of why we got connected, because you're got your perspective and you're seeing actually between the haze, and there's a lot of different narratives in the market because they got IPO, they gotta sell to shareholders, they gotta make their own cheese. Have you seen one of the use cases? I always tie back AI to a business case, so something that it's going to execute or help do, and it has to prove its own ROI. It's not just an experiment, like you said, looking for a problem. Obviously, there's bigger infrastructure to make it to harness the machine.
Yeah.
Have you seen, and this is more interesting to me as well as like your honest take, have you seen companies create net new value where it's new value that they couldn't do otherwise, but augmented with AI? Obviously, it's not left by itself because you still need humans in the loop. But are you seeing that trend, or companies trying to attempt to create net new, either in offerings or internal operations or internal software?
To date, there's been very little new that I've seen. It's been a capability we didn't have before. So I'll give you a couple of examples, like quote and configurator processes. That AI is great for that. And I can shrink my human involvement. I had another client that worked with HVAC systems, and they would get the prints of the building and count all the smokes, the stacks and the openings, and based on that build the quote. Well, AI does that just great. You don't need humans anymore for that.
Yeah.
But, and that's kind of a new capability, but it's not a new offering with AI inside it. That there's less of that around, I think, there's less of that around. They're really taking existing processes and improving them mostly.
Yeah, I believe that as well. And I think listening to your thesis around the business is already a good business, you don't have to change like you mentioned, if I'm doing 10 million last year and it's recurring 9 million this year, I have to find a net new 1 million. Like if the business is a good business, you don't have to dramatically change the ship because you have to re-architecting at some point,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Right. And what's the from to? You got to be really clear about what am I trying to get to that I can't get any other way. And AI will probably do some things that we can't do ourselves. But the
Yeah.
places I'm seeing real innovation is in, and I'm not directly involved in the space, but like drug development, because and chemical development, because AI has a capability
Mhm.
of analyzing molecules and genetic sequences way better than humans can.
Yeah.
But that's still human augmentation. I mean, okay, would have taken us 50 years to figure it out. It figured it out in 5 days. Awesome. But
Yeah.
it's not a new. It's a better version of
Mm.
an existing.
Yeah. The only perspective that I can add is the client who's doing this with their clients is building internal software, making it work for the company, then going to market with that new offer as an internal software. But these are again same fractional size, like 20 to $50 million companies.
Yeah, but okay, but it's the same thing. I could have hired a bunch of coders, built that software, and went and
Yeah.
sold it. The fact that I used AI to build the code is just human augmentation. I don't need as many coders anymore.
No, I like the grounding to it.
Yeah. Yeah. The people who are really struggling with this are professional services firms that build by the hour, where AI
Oh,
really can.
it's changing pricing dramatically.
I don't, if I was a lawyer, I don't know what I'd do. You go, look, it used to take, 25 hours to do that contract. And now it takes me 25 minutes. What do I charge my client for that? I can't charge them $1,000 an hour anymore, but I can't live on $250. Like, what do I do? They have a giant problem on their hands. Really
Yeah,
significant.
I actually wrote about that. Like that there's 4 new ways to price, and even McKinsey and Bain, like just last, or actually it was yesterday, it came out like
Mm,
customers are asking them to change how they bill. Like 25% of their work now is outcome based. So how do you change
sure.
that? That's going to fundamentally change the model.
Yep.
So if we're in the hype cycle,
Yeah. Yeah. Jim's opinion. I could be wrong,
and
but I think so.
uh, I think it's good to have these perspective. I had a guy who ran a data center on the pod. It's the only eco-friendly, job profitable, nice data center in the U.S. So he's also agreeing that there is a hype to it, and it's good to have your
Mm.
perspective because you're cutting through the essentially the fog that everyone's in right now. What are the best businesses to build or to continue to build that you're seeing today, 5 years from now, that you're bullish on?
Well, the retro answer is anything that absolutely requires human hands on. So HVAC, diesel mechanic, plumber,
Mm.
electrician, doctor, nurse, all really good. Because massage therapist, at least for the moment, until the robots get better, right? I mean, but at
I
the
don't know about people
second,
on
yeah,
You never know.
you never know, right? What if they were really good at it and it was cheap? So anything with physical involvement has got a relatively longer runway on it. And we're now seeing, I mean, there's an article in the journal a few weeks back about kids that are foregoing college, going to trade school. So the old Tech that we used to say, oh, those are for the dumb kids that can't go to college. They go become a plumber. The smart kids are now going to become plumbers, like, because that's going to
Yeah.
be around in 10 years. So that's for sure one. I think first mover advantage, where you really can, in any industry, where you embrace AI and drop your operational costs and increase your operational efficiency before anybody else does, you get that
Mm.
first mover advantage, allows you to gain some interesting market share. So I could apply it to any business where there is leverage due to AI if you go first.
Mm.
And you can accumulate enough of a position that you're pretty safe for a while at least. So that first mover or hands-on would be my two winners. It's the old joke, right? Two guys are walking through the woods and a bear comes out of the woods. And one guy drops down, pulls his sneakers out of his backpack and starts lacing them up. And his buddy goes, hey, man, you're not going to be able to outrun the bear. He goes, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun you. Same thing's true for first mover. Like, as
Yeah.
if you're faster, you win. So I think there's scope for, and we're seeing some companies believing that, but still not quite sure what to do to embrace it. So I think that
Interesting.
idea of trying to be an early mover is sort of permeating at second, but people are like, okay, I get it. What do I
How do
do
I do
for a
it?
second? Yeah, that's where they're struggling. Yeah.
Is that a new constraint, or is that like, it doesn't sound like it's a constraint? It sounds like it's taking a new opportunity, right?
Well, interesting. And I talk about this in the book, that constraints and opportunities are the same side of of one coin. So if I'm growing reasonably well, but I've got this massive opportunity in front of me, my ability to access it can be a constraint. So yeah, opportunities can be constraints. If I don't have the ability to go after it, I see it, it's there, it's real, and I can't get after it, then I got to go fix something in the business to get after it. So it can
That's
look like a
brilliant.
constraint. Yeah.
What's been the one interesting thing that surprised you in the last 6 months with like all the CEOs that you're working with, like either an insight or just human behavior? Like what's actually surprised you?
Hmm. I don't get surprised by much anymore. Well, I'll tell you what, I've had at least a couple of clients and people I know, smart people, they're like, this is the end of the world. The AI is controlling the information feeds to politicians, therefore controlling our government. This is the beginning of the end of everything. I'm like, it is such doomsday talk. I'm like, they driven off of AI. I'm like, I don't think so, but they're convinced that this is the beginning of the end of the universe, basically. AI is going to take
Yeah.
over everything. Everybody, they're going to control your information flows, my information flows. They're going to know everything about us. It's like entering the matrix effectively, right? They'll give us exactly what we want and we'll be happy and they're going to run everything until we're perceived as a threat, which is, like I said, there's been 10 movies about that, but they're buying
Yeah.
it.
It's
I'm
not a
like, holy
non-zero
moly.
chance, but
Yeah,
but
it's
it's not, I'm not
pretty.
saying it's a big chance, man.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that such intelligent people are convinced. They didn't do what you did. There's a 0.0001% probability that's the outcome, right? No, they're like, this is the outcome, 100%.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, which is surprising to me. That first of all, how can you be so certain? And what's your data set that says that's what's happening? And that's been surprising and disturbing because these are people I respect their opinions, and I'm like, you went
It's
off the farm,
bleeding
my
over.
friend. You went off the
Beliefs and
farm, my friend.
oh, that's wild. How are you keeping like if I read correctly, you've climbed Kilimanjaro. You're
Yeah.
also like a level 2 sommelier, like for fun, or is that like you also tell CEOs, hey, you got to do something exciting, something different, big challenge outside physical? Is that part of the role, or is it just personality trait?
Well, I would say that good CEOs are curious. They're
Mm,
all endlessly curious. They want to know, they want to understand. They generally have an intellectual hobby of some sort where they've got to be thoughtful and learn things. And like, if you work with your brain, you just don't turn it off. So
yeah,
it's going to keep going. I tell people, like, when do I stop thinking? Like when I'm asleep. And even then, not so much sometimes.
you're
If I
still
wake
dreaming.
up at 2 a.m, I wake up and like, so I joke for me, and I'm maybe an extreme example of this, but I tell people my gravestone's going to say easily bored. So
Dang.
I go from one thing to the next. I love to learn. I love to learn new stuff. Like,
No, I love it. Jim, for our listeners out there, where's the best place for people to thank you for being on and also learn more about you?
yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jim Schleckser. I'm the only one out there. Or you can go to the CEOproject.com and learn about what we do with CEO peer groups.
Right on. I'll put those links in the show notes. Jim, thanks again for being on.
Thanks, Raul. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to get more of these podcasts, please go ahead and subscribe to wherever you're watching or listening to the pod. If you have any suggestions or questions that you want me to answer on the pod, or you have a guest that you want me to interview, please go ahead and email me all of your suggestions and questions at podcast@dogoodwork.io. That's podcast@dogoodwork.io. If you'd like to give me public feedback, you can go on Apple Podcasts, and from there, you can leave up to a 5-star review. I would greatly appreciate that. If you like more free resources where you can get my best strategies to help you increase your company's performance and scale profitably, you can get handpicked articles to propel your growth, and you can get trainings and discussions that I give freely online, as well as low-cost resources such as my books and guides. You can get all of that by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. 90% of all of these resources are not behind any email opt-ins. You can get instant access by going to dogoodwork.io/resources. Now, if you'd like to accelerate your progress and shorten the gap between information and action and start seeing results in your business, let's work together to increase your company's performance and scale profitably and serve more clients without the overwhelm. You can request a free clarity call to see how we can best support you to reach your goals by going to dogoodwork.io/apply. Again, that's dogoodwork.io/apply. As always, it's an honor to be a small part in your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.